Did you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why you held on to the documents?
I was negotiating and we were talking.
Kaitlan Collins just served Donald Trump the juiciest slice of humble pie on live TV, and his reaction was absolutely priceless. Picture Trump red-faced and scrambling for words as Collins casually hits him with a truth bomb he never saw coming. Trust me, folks, you've never seen Trump this rattled.
So he doesn't think he can fire the Fed chair?
I think that's been resolved in the previous administration. You could go back and find a clip where I talked about it right in this.
Collins isn't holding back on Donald Trump is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. This time, he's gone and fired 2 Democratic Federal Trade Commission, FTC, commissioners like it's some kind of reality TV stunt. You know, the kind where...
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Someone gets dramatically tossed off the show with zero warning, no explanation, just because the star thinks they're above it all. But let's be clear here. Trump, this isn't a TV show, and this isn't how things work in the real world. You can't just fire people because you don't like their political views or because you feel like.
President Trump's top economic advisors, Kevin Hassett, as soon as he wrapped an interview. This was coming about 24 hours after President Trump had summarily fired both of the Democratic commissioners who serve on the Federal Trade Commission, which they argued was an illegal move by the president. And it also raised questions, certainly in the business world, about whether or not that could mean that Trump is preparing to seek to fire other independent agency heads, like potentially the Fed chair, Fed board members. A question that I posed to Mr. Kevin Hassett. The president fired last night 2 members of the FTC, the Democratic members of that. It raised questions about whether or not he does respect the independence of the Fed or he thinks that they are fair game as well. What is the president's view on that?
We very much.
If you're enjoying, please subscribe. And by the way, we have Trump merch available for a limited amount of time. The link can be found in the description. Blatant disregard for legal norms or his usual pattern of trying to skirt accountability, it's clear that Trump doesn't care about rules. He's always been the type to think the system is just for everyone else. But this time, the law's got his number, and it might just be time for him to face the consequences.
Get this to the Supreme Court to try to overturn the 1935 precedent. The goal was to let these individuals go. If we have to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, we certainly will.
Collins isn't here for your power plays. You can't just fire people because they're doing their jobs, especially when it comes to government commissioners tasked with holding businesses accountable. These commissioners were making sure companies didn't run wild, something Trump absolutely can't stand. And yet, Trump, like some petulant child, decides to fire them for doing their jobs too well. But hey, when you're someone who thinks the law doesn't apply to you, I guess this is just Tuesday, right?
Fired commissioners, Commissioner Bedoya told the New York Times, and I'm quoting now, when people hear this news, they need to not think about me. They need to think about the billionaires behind the president at his inauguration. My next source was appointed to the FTC by President Trump actually during his first term in 2018. She was the other Democratic commissioner fired by him yesterday, Rebecca Slaughter.
As always, doesn't let Trump get away with it. This isn't a, whoops, I made a mistake moment. No, this is classic Trump behavior. Firing anyone who stands in his way, especially when it comes to people doing their job of enforcing accountability. These FTC commissioners were making sure businesses were held to a fair standard, and we all know how Trump feels about that. He doesn't want to be checked. He wants free reign to do whatever he pleases. But guess what, Don? The law doesn't bend to your whims. It's illegal to just fire people because you don't like them, no matter how much you think you're above it all. But here's the thing. Kaitlan's not pulling any punches. This is not the first time Trump's done something like this. It's become a pattern. He doesn't like what someone's doing? Fire them. Whether it's staff, employees, or now government officials, Trump's idea of leadership is to simply toss anyone who disagrees with him out the door. And when confronted with his reckless actions, what does he do? Deflect, deflect, deflect. But don't worry, Kaitlan's got his...
The statute that governs the FTC says that someone who is in your position cannot be fired only if they can be removed for cause if there is neglect, malfeasance, or inefficiency. Were you given any of those reasons when you were fired?
No, absolutely none.
And so what was there just any argument whatsoever beyond the letter you received?
The president can fire you, and so he chooses.
They think he's playing some high-stakes game of chess, but it's clear he's actually just throwing a tantrum. Accountability? Nah, who needs that when you can just fire people who actually hold you to standards? But for Kaitlan Collins, this isn't just a minor blip. It's another example of Trump's utter disregard for the law, for fair competition, and for anyone who dares to challenge his vision. He fires people like it's a joke, but Kaitlan's not laughing. She's calling out the hypocrisy, the recklessness, and the blatant power grab that's been Trump's trademark since day one. The worst part of this entire stunt is how Trump reacts. He's not owning up to his actions. Oh no, he's blaming everyone else. The commissioners were incompetent. The system's unfair to him. It's always someone else's fault in Trump's world. Well, guess what? Kaitlan Collins isn't letting him deflect this one.
I believe that's illegal.
It is absolutely illegal. The statute that you referenced is very clear on its face. And in fact, the Supreme Court has evaluated whether it is a constitutionally valid statute and whether a president can remove an FTC commissioner. Exactly this question. They faced it 90 years ago when FDR tried to remove an FTC commissioner, Commissioner Humphrey. And they said, no, the law is clear. They cannot be removed other than for cause. And that is a constitution.
Commissioners were just doing their jobs, and for that, Trump thought it was okay to fire them. But as Kaitlan points out, Trump doesn't want to be held accountable for anything. He just wants to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, with no consequences. This is where Kaitlan really draws the line. You can't keep getting away with this, Don. Trump's entire life has been a series of scandals, and he's still walking around like the rules don't apply to him. But Kaitlan's here to remind us all that this isn't just a minor issue. It's a blatant abuse of power, and it needs to be called out for what it is.
Interesting in your statement when you were fired, and you said that you believed, in part it was because, quote, I have a voice and he is afraid of what I'll tell the American people. What is it that you have to tell the American people?
Yeah, well, it's a really important point. I'm a minority commissioner right now. That means I'm not in charge of the agency. But what the FTC minority commissioners can do, and what commissioners at other independent agencies can do, is bring transparency and accountability to the work of the agency. So without the voice of the minority commissioners, if you see, for example, the FTC dismiss one of our many litigations against some of the big tech CEOs who flanked the president in his inauguration, you may not have any reason to know what was going on behind the scenes or what some other explanations or counter arguments will be. And that transparency and accountability has served the FTC really well for over 100 years.
There's no business firing people who are doing their jobs, and he certainly doesn't get to act like this is some kind of game he can win just by bending the rules to his will. At the end of the day, Trump isn't just undermining the system, he's breaking it. And it's high time someone like Kaitlan holds him accountable. Because if we don't, this will just keep happening. Trump will keep thinking that the laws don't apply to him and that he can fire anyone who challenges him. But we know better, and Kaitlan's not backing down from calling him out.
I mean, we have that picture of all of the CEOs who were flanking Trump at his inauguration, but the FTC is in active litigation with maybe a lot of these people.
Almost all of them. Almost.
You're looking at the names. And
I'm looking at the names right now. Almost all of them.
And so you're saying that in your position, you'd be able to speak out and say, okay, hey, they just dismissed this case against this company. Here's why I think that's a problem, or I disagree.
Yeah. So, for example, in 2019, when I was in minority commissioner at the FTC settled a big privacy case with the company that was then called Facebook for a $5 billion payment. The majority of the time touted it as the largest payment ever and a huge successful win for law enforcement. But I said I disagreed, that I thought it wasn't nearly what the violations merited, and people should understand it as a slap on the wrist for a company that had the kinds of profits and revenue that Facebook had.
While the two fired Democrat FTC commissioners are planning to fight it out with Donald in the Supreme Court, Kaitlan Collins will never stop using her mouth to roast Donald Trump. Now, why does this matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, because Trump has a history of using his power to boot people out, and now two people from a key regulatory body are trying to make sure that, just like the Donald, they don't get walked all over. But while those FTC commissioners are going head-to-head with Trump's administration, another individual has been taking a different approach: Kaitlan Collins. She's not just planning a legal showdown, she's doing what she does best: taking the fight to Trump live on television with her sharp tongue and fearless questioning. And boy, does she love to roast them.
Two big things that stood out in the press conference that President Trump just held with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer here at the White House. One was how he talked about President Zelensky and how differently his tone that he took was compared to what he has used in recent days, when he called the Ukrainian leader a dictator without elections.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast.
Do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
Trump would not repeat that claim today, but he also did not apologize for it when he was asked if he'd do so.
Probably seen Kaitlan Collins on CNN, where she's become one of the more recognizable faces in the network's coverage of the White House. She's not just another reporter asking softball questions, hoping to get a soundbite. No, Kaitlan Collins has built a reputation for herself by challenging Trump and his administration head-on. And she's done it with style, grace, and a whole lot of sass. If there's one thing you can count on, it's that Kaitlan Collins will never stop using her mouth to roast Donald Trump. What makes Collins' approach to Trump so unique, though, is how she does it. While the fired FTC commissioners are navigating a complicated legal battle, Collins is on the front lines of political journalism, taking Trump to task whenever she gets the chance. She doesn't hesitate to confront him with hard-hitting questions, even when Trump's team tries to shut her down. When she asks the tough questions, there's no avoiding it, no turning the other cheek.
We had a great call, and it lasted for a long time, over an hour this morning.
It's the first time we're hearing directly from Trump on this call that he had with President Putin today, the first confirmed call that we know of between the U.S. president and the Russian president since Trump took office a few weeks ago.
President Putin said that he wants it to end. He doesn't want to end it and then go back to fighting 6 months later. We talked about the possibility, I mentioned it, of a ceasefire so we can stop the killing, and I think we'll probably end up at some point getting a ceasefire in the not too distant future.
Now, of course, the timeline here is a real question, Jake. President Trump pledged on the campaign trail to solve the Ukraine war in one day, and now the question is what this is going to look like and how this negotiation is.
For example, her role during the White House press briefings. She's constantly asking Trump about everything from his controversial statements to his policies that affect millions of Americans. But it's not just about asking tough questions. Collins knows how to press those buttons and keep Trump on the defensive. The way she challenges him in real time is the kind of spectacle that we can't get enough of. Trump, who's used to avoiding accountability, faces the sharp-tongued questions of a woman who doesn't care about political niceties or being liked. And let's be real, Trump's not exactly known for his ability to handle criticism, especially when it's coming from someone who isn't afraid to challenge him. Unlike the FTC commissioners, who have to slog through legal channels and rely on the courts to determine their fate, Collins has the power of live television and the ability to capture Trump's unfiltered responses in real time. It's a dynamic that plays out on a daily basis, and it's both comical and disturbing at the same time. You get this sense that the only way Trump can really cope with Collins' sharp critiques is to resort to his usual tactics: deflection, insults, and of course, the occasional Twitter rant.
East of Ukraine, not far from the front lines and in areas that Russia has occupied. Will you direct President Putin to withdraw his forces from those areas if there's U.S. interest there?
Well, we'll take a look at the time. We have a lot of area. It's a very big area we're talking about, so we'll take a look. I'll study that and I'll see.
And who would protect those minerals if they are U.S. interests? Would that be Ukrainian
They'll
forces, European
forces? The agreement
forces?
will protect them.
U.S. forces?
Agreement, yeah, we're signing an agreement. You know?
Right, but what if Russia tries to invade or there's Russian aggression in those spots? What would
I
you do
just told
then?
you I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
They ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions.
Why you have confidence that Putin won't violate a
Focus
deal?
on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings. I don't think they're going to survive.
People will ask why you have confidence Putin won't violate the deal.
Fired FTC commissioners are preparing for a long and drawn-out legal battle. Collins continues to shine a light on the dysfunction of the Trump administration. She's done what many thought was impossible: She's used the press room as a battleground for political warfare, with her as the warrior wielding a microphone as her sword. It's not just about providing information, it's about holding powerful people accountable, and Collins does it with the kind of flair that makes you wonder if the real action is happening on cable news and not in the courtroom. Of course, we can't forget how Trump has responded to her grilling. Like most people who are caught off guard by a tough question, Trump has often resorted to mocking and belittling Collins. It's his go-to move. Try to discredit the messenger rather than confront the message. But that's never worked on Collins. If anything, it's only fueled her desire to keep pushing harder and expose more. In a way, the more Trump tries to tear her down, the more he builds her up. It's a beautiful cycle of political payback, and it's playing out every time Collins faces him in the briefing room. But while Kaitlan Collins is serving up some of the best political commentary on TV, let's not forget about the larger implications of the FTC commissioner's legal battle. Their fight could have far-reaching consequences for the future of regulatory power and executive authority, depending on how the Supreme Court rules. These commissioners, fired under dubious circumstances, aren't just fighting for their jobs. They're fighting for the integrity of institutions that have the power to regulate everything from the tech industry to consumer protections. They've gone to war with Trump's administration, and they're not backing down.